Well, good afternoon. Nathan Allen here to discuss a couple of these questions that have been posed to us. The first question is, how do you understand the essence of project-based instruction, also known as project-based learning? I want to take a word that's been used in some of the talking lectures and that I think it really encompasses project-based learning. That's going to be the word creativity. Now, there's a few things that I've listed are what I think are the essentials of project-based learning. And one of the top essentials that go along with that creativity is to be inquiry based, to have a reason to ask a question or a reason to want to complete something, to learn something. So, project based learning with the students, it really takes a student that wants to have something completed. That can be completed in multiple ways, multiple fashions, and different ideas. So, in order to accomplish this, it needs to be real life. It has to have something that ties into the life of the student or the surrounding life, something that they would interact with. Um, that being said, since we're dealing with humans and human issues, there's no correct method that I can see. Even from the studies that have been done, there's there's not a set method yet, but I haven't seen a correct method, something that says this is the absolute best way to learn. And that's because different people learn in different ways, and therefore, given the opportunity, they will create their own method of learning. That's an amazing thing of project-based method or project-based learning is you get to create your own way of figuring out, your own way of contemplating it. Now, um, not all people start with a question. Some classrooms they may start with the skills, teach you the skills needed, and then give you a task or an idea, something that you're supposed to try to complete using those skills. This isn't done in all classrooms, but there isn't proof that one way is better than the other. Um, but there is one consensus among those that the reason for it is to produce a higher level of comprehension, a more in-depth understanding of the knowledge, to really increase the depth of knowledge of those students on each of those standards, on each of those skills being learned. Um, these project-based assignments that are being done, or the projects, are necessary to have cooperation. They're done with multiple people, multiple groups, and sometimes multiple schools even. In order to do these collaborative projects, we must bring into consideration the skills necessary to complete those projects. By looking at the skills necessary, that brings us right into the second question, which is, what is your understanding of 21st century skills and the 4 C's? My understanding of the 21st century skills is that they are required for success in the world today. Our world of communication, our world of talking to cameras rather than talking to a face, or talking in front of a crowd of people that you have no idea who they are, where they've come from, but you know that you're trying to get a message across and then work with them. No longer the idea that you are there to present knowledge, the idea that you are there to collaborate with them and use your knowledge and then merge it with their knowledge. This 21st century skills, it causes us to need to compress them together. And this compression or this search for the gold standard or the absolute holy grail of knowledge. It may exist, I haven't seen it yet, but this holy grail that they're looking for is the ability to set a defined limit on where 21st century skills begin, where they end, and what they look like, how to implement them. One of the best ways that they have compressed those 21st century skills into usable segments are what they call the 4 C's. These are critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. Now, they can be split up into multiple areas. They cross each other. They can be tied together in different parts of the project. You may have some areas that require critical thinking, more than collaboration, but then other parts of the project may be the reverse of that. The critical thinking is what allows the student to really understand the skills, to understand what's necessary to complete the project. The collaboration allows them to function in society. We're not talking just collaboration of a student to another student, but collaboration from a student to maybe a figurehead or a government leader in another country. This is taking collaboration to an entire different realm. Creativity mixes into that because there's always a need for something more. This goes along with the view, and it's stemmed from, I guess we could go back to the 1920s, where our country was trying to better itself in many ways, even moving away from the pollution of using animals for transportation to cars, which don't leave piles of poo all over the road. However mistaken they were in that the goal was to better ourselves. We see now that bettering ourselves doesn't always turn out like we want, but it does show us new ways and new techniques. That's why our 21st century skill, we can't just say we figured out a way of doing something better and stick with it. It's a constant reminder that we need to look back and find new ways of doing something and reassessing what we previously did. The communication portion of these 4 C's helps us to talk to and work with others. Collaboration, we tend to think of collaboration and communication together, but collaboration is working together to get something done. But we must have a way of communicating that, either physically, through sound waves, through radio waves, through technology, and communication is transporting the information necessary to collaborate on a creative project which requires critical thinking to resolve. So we put all of those C's together to create projects. One quote that I saw is, the 4 C's are a springboard upon which the highest quality PBL is built. I can concur, and from the classes I've taught, PBL definitely requires structure in the sense that students need to know where they're going. Every step of the way does not have to have a road sign for them, but they need direction of some sort. The 4 C's give them something to assess along the way. They can ask, is our project creative enough? Have we worked together enough? However, the 4 C's are hard to assess. There's no standardized test that we can give that say, oh, well, you've met assessment, or you're creative, so your assessment says that you're creative. Well, now let me give you something that says now you need to be more creative. Well, where does that end? Where does that begin? It's hard to assess creativity. It's hard to assess communication. Did you talk to them 10 times? Did you talk to them 50 times? Well, it's possible that the 10 times you talked to them, you communicated more than the 50 times afterwards. So it's an ongoing struggle to find out ways of assessing them. So assessments tend to lean towards the actual skills involved and the actual standards that the states or the countries themselves put out to say these are things you need to learn, and if you can do them with a deeper understanding or a better knowledge of it, then that means that you have accomplished your goal. Our workforce today is composed of jobs that collaborate, jobs that communicate back and forth, and therefore these 4 C's, our 21st century skills, merge them together. Everything we need to complete our jobs. Now, moving on to the last section, it says, how have you or do you currently implement these concepts in your classroom? I currently teach a project-based classroom, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but I teach social studies in a STEM school, and I've been merging those together for a long time. I work a whole lot with the English department, and all of these concepts are primarily used in every single project that we have. We start out the project by building up from a question, a driving question, and that may be, how could this item affect your lives through the production of some type of automobile? And the students would be able to use that to take it apart. They would have to learn about the automobile itself. They would have to use the item, maybe a fuel source. How can the use of different fuel sources change the type of cars that we would see on the road? And all of that would lead to other questions. Well, what type of fuel sources do we have? They would list those out. How do those fuel sources affect our lives? That's the inquiry part. The communication part is working in the groups and collaboration as well. So we put them in groups and we give them specific tasks. Each group may have their own entry document, which includes their own questioning, their own orders, or their own instructions. Or we may put them individually and then allow them to seek out help from other people who are also working on the same project. The communication, we've had students that have called other companies to get pricing on different materials for buildings, to get help on ideas on what to do, talking to people around the town that have a better understanding of construction. I've had students call a construction company and discuss with them on the phone what they need to do in order to pursue the construction of a building and who they need to talk to. And from there they were sent to the City of Palestine, where they went to the City of Palestine, had their parents drive them over there, and the City of Palestine made copies of the different areas around the school, what parts were owned by the school, what parts were owned by the city, to understand where they might be able to build a structure if they could. These all are skills that were not taught in the classroom. I did not teach them how to talk to somebody, but when they went to call somebody, I listened to them and then assessed them and then gave them comments on how better to communicate on the phone. Once I discussed that, that became a lesson, and they were able to tie that in to the next person they called, the next person they talked to. And the biggest issue I run into with those type of situations is having to set up a lineup of who gets to call the next person, because I end up having some students that want to make all the phone calls, and then I have some students that don't want to make any phone calls. So it's a push and take. It's real world. It has to do with their current situation, their school, but implementing it also takes a want from the student to push themselves to take part in what they're doing. So the concepts I've used, inquiry is constant. The 4 C's are just thrown throughout the PBL. You can't avoid them. The hardest thing is assessing them, though, is day-to-day activities, looking at it and saying, did this activity truly show ingenuity? Did they create something new? Were they creative at all in this, or did they just copy someone else's idea and use it in their project? And so PBL, we run into problems creating a project that really stresses the students' abilities and requires them to know specific skills, and not just the ability to research online, find ways that other people did it, and just copy them. That's the issue I run into with the 4 C's. As far as PBL in the classroom, I've always seen success in the PBLs, and I've seen failures in some. And it's not necessarily due to one student. It's not necessarily due to one lesson that was taught. The success and the failures are usually due to the students not comprehending the importance or not seeing the world connections in it. And so that would be my number one focus is, can you make this a world connection that they will see importance in and want to do? Well, I hope you enjoyed my video, and until next time.